And what he said is that this social emotional learning is a master skill. It underlies all effective outcomes. But we can also think about this from an economic standpoint. Economists are very interested in the question, does social emotional learning, is it a good economic investment for society? And you can see that the result shows that there's about a savings of $11 for each dollar that was invested in 6 different SEL programs that were studied in the United States. So what did they look at? They looked at things like, as adults, the children who have schools that use SEL, are they more likely to pay taxes? Are they less likely to be arrested and have criminal costs? Are they likely to be physically healthier, so they use less medical insurance? Okay? And what we see is that's the case. And the PASS program, which I'll talk about more later today, has shown a benefit of $21 for every $1 invested. And that's mostly because when you improve both academic abilities and you decrease mental health problems, you have a healthier society. We're using less services that are stress-related services. So how is it implemented? So now we know that SEL has effects from randomized trials. We know that it affects our physical well-being as well as our mental well-being and our academic achievement. We know it's economically sound. That's a pretty good set of arguments, isn't it? For why we should be moving forward as a society. But how do we implement it? So if we think about social emotional learning, here's the 5 quadrants of the Castle model. Right? Those 5 skills I already mentioned. And we have to think about 3 levels at least. The first is using good SEL curriculum that we know have evidence that work. Okay? The second thing is we have to have quality instruction. As the teachers need to be well trained, or the parent volunteers in the case of the Happiness Village. Your parents are amazing, and we saw a wonderful lesson at Minsheng Elementary School yesterday by a parent volunteer. But we need both good curriculum and we need good training for instruction. We need not only to think about what goes on in the classroom, just what the teacher is teaching instruction-wise, we need to think about the whole school. What's happening in the whole school? What's happening in the hallways? What's happening in the teacher's lounge? Everywhere. So we infuse this quality of social emotional health throughout the school. And lastly, we need to think about families, involving families from the beginning, which Happiness Village has done an amazing job in Taiwan. And we need to think about community. For example, after-school programs, summer camps, all kinds of other activities that children are engaged in that are important for their development. And then, of course, we could have more circles. We could have the Taipei City School District Circle. And we could have the circle of the Ministry of Education. Okay? Larger, broader policy circles. Sorry, having a little problem here. Okay. So if we want to have a system, it's a good idea to have teachers teaching curriculum in the classroom. But that's just the first part of solving this problem. So we want to think about how schools and school districts and governments can take a broader systemic approach to this problem. And that means first that there has to be a vision of what it is that we want. And that vision may be very different in kindergarten, in primary school, and high schools, for example, because of the different structure, the different developmental period, the changes in the growing brain of a teenager, for example. We need to know what our resources are. What are our needs? So one school may have a certain set of resources, and another school a different set. One school may have one particular kind of need, another school may have a different kind of need. embed professional learning. We want teachers and the school secretary and the custodian and the lunch ladies, everyone in the school to be embedded in learning about how to do this well. Even though the teacher or the parent volunteer is teaching the lessons in the classroom, unless children see all of us using these abilities, they really won't use them very much. So this is the problem of what we call generalization of the skills. Then we want to implement evidence-based programs and policies. And we can select from programs that already exist, or we can develop and test new programs. We want to integrate throughout the school and beyond to the families. And like any good kind of business or science, we want to be using data regularly because we need to improve. The first time we try to embed this kind of approach in school, there'll be some things that will work and some things that won't work. And so we want to use data for continuous improvement. I was at a school in Shanghai late last week in which the school is taking data from the children on how the children are feeling and what they're doing and what they like and what they don't like. And they're assessing how the families are feeling and what the families feel is needed, just like Mrs. Yang showed you data earlier. And then they revise the programs in the school based on continuous data. It's very unusual. Most schools, unfortunately, focus on their achievement test data, and that's it, because that's the policy criteria by which most schools are measured around the world. Right? And what we're seeing now in many countries is policymakers are saying, of course academic test scores are important, but we have to have other measures of a school's health. We have to have other measures of children's well-being that are just as important as achievement tests in order to make a healthy society of global citizens. So what does school-wide social emotional learning look like? Well, it's everywhere. We want to know what's happening in the front office. So when parents are greeted by the school secretary, how welcoming is he or she? If children go to the office because they're having a problem, do people know how to talk to the child about the problem they're having? Right? We want to make sure We want to make sure the library is a place that has good books focused on social emotional learning. Right? All the different parts of the school are all important. What happens in the principal's office is probably the most important. Right? What is the principal doing as the leader to support social emotional development? When a child comes into the principal's office, maybe because they've had a problem, how does the principal talk with the child? Right? Does the principal just call the parents so the child gets in trouble? Can you remember some of you having that problem? Your parents were called? Well, that's not a good way to learn. A good way to learn is not when we humiliate a child, but when we begin to discuss with them what happened, why did it happen, how is it affecting other people in the classroom, what could the child do next time that's different. So instead of having children feel humiliated and suppressing their emotions, the goal in social emotional learning is to have an open discussion about what went on and how to improve it next time. And the principal's office is an important place for that. So we've been studying social emotional learning for about 35 years at Castle. And these are things we know are important. If we want this to really work and to be sustained over time, to really have a public health impact, we need to have school-wide use. Not just in the classroom is critical, but across the entire school. We need to have strong leadership. The principal's behavior, his or her behavior, is the critical single element that makes this work or not in a school. And when you see a great principal create a warm, caring school, it's a beautiful thing. because it doesn't happen very often. Many children don't feel their schools are warm, caring places. They think they're places in which they have to perform, and if they don't perform well, they'll feel shamed. And that's not how we build a healthy society. We need teachers to be consistent. All the adults in the school to be consistent in using the skills. But we have to be very flexible. Every situation is different. We want to use evidence-based curriculum. Just like if you go to a doctor, you want the doctor to use evidence-based medicine. But we want to flexibly use it. So in each school, in each context, we're doing it a little differently. We're fitting the context. We want to integrate. We want to integrate with the rest of the school curriculum. So for example, what the librarian has children doing in the library, what the physical education teacher is doing in physical education, what the art teacher is having children do in art classes. Right? All across the school, we want to integrate the idea of social and emotional learning. And we want to integrate it with a particular school's and neighborhood's culture, both the school and the community. We want to use the community's own local resources to make this really fit as beautifully as possible. So, for the last 36 years, I've been working on one curriculum. It's gone through many evolutions over the 36 years. In fact, for the first 5 years, 1980 to 1985, we only used with deaf children in sign language. That's how it evolved originally. So PATH is a school-based model, only done in schools. It's very important that it's taught by the teacher, we think on a regular basis, because the teacher is with the children during the day. It's not just teaching the skills during a 30-minute period. It's having children prompted to use the skills, to practice the skills, especially when they're highly emotionally aroused, like after being on the playground, or when they've had a hard time with a test, or they're not understanding the academic material. We have versions for kindergarten from age 3 to 4 through age 12. And it's used in somewhere around 3,000 schools throughout the world, many different countries, including now recently translated in Chinese and being used in Shanghai. So what are the core features? What makes a good curriculum? Our goal in the end is this simple statement, the golden rule. Okay? It's in every society, Confucian, of course. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And if we only did that to each other, we'd have a very loving society.